Senator Fierravanti-Wells.
Thank you, Mr Acting Deputy President. On my desk in my office, I have a little plaque which my husband made for me. Written on the plaque is a quote by Marcus Aurelius, Roman emperor and philosopher. It reads, "When you speak in the Senate or to any individual, be straightforward, not pedantic. Use language which rings true." And in speaking today, I take guidance from another quote by Marcus Aurelius. "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Integrity, the word most often used to describe the aspiration that we as politicians have. Indeed, it is a universal aspiration that all men and women seek to adhere to in their daily lives. But for those in public office, integrity is not just an aspiration, it is an obligation. Indeed, as I have said before, the higher the office, the greater the responsibility. So what is integrity? Common definitions refer to the adherence to a code of especially moral or artistic values, to incorruptibility, to honesty, trust and respect. At a time of far greater scrutiny on public officials, do we have in place the necessary frameworks to ensure that public officials do conform to principles of integrity? But when they fail to do so, there are appropriate sanctions. As politicians, we are the lawmakers, and as such, we should not be above those laws. Politics is about perceptions, and regrettably, the perception that the general public have about us is not good. And why is it not good? Because repeatedly, the actions of politicians from local, state and federal ranks have acted without integrity and contributed to the ongoing and deteriorating perception of the body politic. In any survey about the most trusted professions in our society, politicians usually rank amongst the lowest. And why wouldn't this be the case, given the continued exposure of questionable activities over many years? Whether it's alleged lies in election campaigns, dodgy pre-selections, misappropriation of public monies, personal benefits resulting from insider information, money sequestered in overseas tax havens, abuse of office for personal advantage, connections with foreign governments, the list goes on and on. Negative public perceptions are compounded when politicians dig their heels in, spin the story and fail to take responsibilities for their actions. They rely on the fast-moving media cycle and wait for the next story to take the wrongdoing off the front page. With perceptions of corruption in Australia increasing the erosion of public trust in institutions and the advent of an increasing number of political scandals, there are growing calls for a better National Integrity Commission than the one proposed by the government. Being from New South Wales, I'm conscious of the need to heed the lessons from the New South Wales Independent Commission Against Corruption, which was used to settle factional scores and destroy careers. However, the role of such a body needs to uncover corruption and expose it publicly. As we have seen with state bodies, they have powers which the police and prosecuting authorities do not have, including the power to force people to answer questions which may incriminate them but which is often inadmissible in court. Public hearings with appropriate safeguards are important. In addition, there should be no special treatment for politicians and their staff. Public trust will continue to be undermined unless members of parliament are subject to full and proper scrutiny. An article titled "Integrity Concerns" by Karen Middleton in the Saturday paper of 12 December 2020 cites comments by former High Court Justice Mary Gaudron QC. The article states that the only way a parliamentarian could be brought before the proposed commission was if both that parliamentarian and the Attorney-General reasonably suspected a crime had been committed. Gordon was absolutely correct when she said that it is unlikely, let me tell you, that a parliamentarian is going to front up and say, "I think on reasonable grounds that I've committed a crime." In an article in the Sydney Morning Herald of 4 November 2020 titled "Weak Powers to Expose Federal MPs, Former Judge Blasts Corruption Watchdog Plan," Anthony Wheely QC, Chair of the Centre for Public Integrity and a former Court of Appeal judge, said that the proposed Commonwealth Integrity Commission had fundamental deficiencies. He said that the Commission would be split in two divisions with completely different powers and that the division responsible for investigating alleged corruption by federal MPs, their staff or departments would be unable to hold public hearings, make corruption findings or act directly on tip-offs from the public. In November 2020, Transparency International Australia, in conjunction with Griffith University, Queensland, released a paper titled Australia's National Integrity System, the Blueprint for Action. The paper offers suggestions for a holistic, whole-of-government approach, and it highlights two salutary statistics. First, our score on the 2019 Transparency International's Corruption Perception Index is 77, down 8 points since 2012. And secondly, that in October 2020, 66% of surveyed Australians thought corruption in government was quite a big or very big problem, up from 61% in 2018. I have previously raised the question of vetting of politicians, and whilst this is a complex issue, nevertheless it warrants consideration in any discussion about integrity. I had the opportunity last year during a Senate inquiry to canvass the issue of vetting of politicians with the Director-General of ASIO, Mike Burgess, especially in the context of foreign interference in our political system. He stated, "I personally think or professionally think that actually there is imperfection in our democratic system, but actually it is right that it is the members of political parties that pick their people who would run as candidates, and it is right that the citizens vote those candidates in and therefore a government is elected, and those people are the chosen people by the community and the parties in terms of ministerial positions. That might be imperfect, but actually I think that's still a very good system." Why do I say that? Because ultimately, even in that imperfection, if politicians or ministers do the wrong thing by the law, there are ways of capturing that. I think the Director-General makes a very good point about the imperfection of our system, and this is especially the case where there is reliance on the political party machine to take action. However, over many years, and notwithstanding the increased internal vetting processes of the parties prior to pre-selection, the imperfection referred to by the Director-General is real and problematic, given the many instances of politicians who have been less than truthful to their pre-selectors and in turn been elected on the basis of falsehoods. Following the pronouncements of the High Court regarding issues pertinent to dual citizenship, we saw a flurry of changes by the Parliament in relation to disclosures and tighter scrutinies by the political parties of candidates, and this demonstrates that change can be effected. But it is the intersection between the role of parliamentarian and politician that we have often seen the system protecting wrongdoing. Let me give you a practical example of where the system is defective and not working when we leave issues of integrity to the party machine. One New South Wales MP, who later became a minister, is reported to have been involved in the altering of branch records for a meeting at which 10 new members were accepted into his conference. The minutes forwarded to the party headquarters recorded that the members were rejected. However, those in attendance asserted the contrary and subsequently lodged statutory declarations to the party's state director. What is not in dispute is that the MP at the centre of the accusations will most certainly be challenged at his next pre-selection. So 10 new members could make all the difference. More than 2 years have passed since the formal complaints and statutory declarations were submitted to the party headquarters and to his Prime Minister. The allegations of record tampering and the MP's role are still to be resolved. The party machine in this instance seems unable or unwilling to make a judgment as to integrity. This is an imperfection in the system where the political PR concerns outweigh the importance of openness, truth and integrity. Once elected, there is no vetting, notwithstanding the exposure that many politicians have to highly sensitive information. As a minister, my staff were all vetted, yet I did not go through the process. Accordingly, at the very least, ministers should be vetted, and politicians who assume offices, especially those with exposure to sensitive and highly classified information, should also go through some vetting process. Can I conclude by stating that I share the concerns that have been raised about the adequacy of the government's proposed National Integrity Commission. Restoring faith in the political class will require considerable effort, starting with at least a robust national integrity system with proper accountability, starting with the political class.